Ministers, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. Young people matter. And they matter because roughly 1/4 of the world's population is between 10 and 24 years old. That's an unprecedented 1.8 billion young people. And that 1.8 billion young people are the shapers and leaders of our global future. On Friday, world leaders adopted the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development, and with it, 17 new global goals. And these goals, one could say, are perhaps the most ambitious in history. The involvement and leadership of young people in the implementation, monitoring, and accountability of these goals is fundamental to having any chance of achieving them. Children and young women and men are critical agents of change. And the new agenda, a platform for them to create a better world using their youthful energy and drive, or their restless development. Since 2012, I've been a member of the high-level task force for the International Conference on Population Development. Now, this task force was created to provide a bold and independent voice for gender equality, the empowerment of youth, and sexual and reproductive health and rights for all, and for ensuring that their rightful place in the 2030 Agenda was secure in the heart of that agenda. And although there is, surprisingly for some, no explicit goal directed at youth empowerment, it is clearly implied throughout the 17 goals and 169 targets that for them to be successful, they must be successful and inclusive for all men, women, girls and boys, no matter who you are or where you live. The agenda is a pledge that no one is to be left behind. My engagement in these issues stems from a strong belief that the right to make free, informed and responsible decisions about one's body, sexuality, health and relationships, the right to access information such as comprehensive sexuality education and reproductive health services, enabling young women to protect themselves from unwanted pregnancies or HIV infection, and the right of young people to develop and make their own choices without being forced into, for example, early marriage or seeing their lives shattered as a result of sexual violence. These rights are fundamental human rights which must be fulfilled and protected. Unleashing the potential of young people, however, goes beyond sexual and reproductive health and rights. It relates to being able to obtain an education and relevant skills, having meaningful employment opportunities, and having prospects and hopes for the future. It also relates to being able to participate in decision-making processes affecting not only their own lives or your own lives and futures, but the futures of your families, communities, and countries. Young people can only reach their full potential when they are healthy and educated, and when they have equal opportunities for employment, leadership, and decision-making at all levels. During my travels, I meet many young people, and they are the source of tremendous inspiration. Their strength and will to make a better life for themselves, despite the fact they're often standing up against extreme odds, is so tangible. But I'd like to share just a quick story with you from a recent trip to Ethiopia. And it's about the potential that can be released with a single intervention. And it's a story I share often. And it's about a young girl who grew up in the Afar region in Ethiopia, a region where life is hard, especially for women and girls. For girls, it's a struggle to be able to go to school, to avoid early marriages, and most go through life with serious health problems as a consequence of FGMC. I visited a joint program of UNFPA and UNICEF for the elimination of FGMC and child marriage, and all the members of the community, young and old, were involved. As part of the initiative, groups of young adolescent girls got together to talk about difficult and intimate issues. And I attended one of these groups, and there was a story of one of the girls that really stood out. And just as a way of introduction, these girls had no idea of the concept of savings before they started the program. But on this day, each and every girl sat there very proudly with their very own bank book. And one of these girls, she had taken this new knowledge and acted on it. She had persuaded her father to give her a starting capital of 500 beer, which is the equivalent of about $24 US. And she had gone to the local market and bought 2 young goats, and she'd fattened them up, and then after some time taken them back to the same market and sold them for over 1,000 beer each. Now when I met her, she was had already bought 2 new and was in the process of fattening them up. And her entrepreneurship was driven by this real desire to further and strengthen her education in a nearby town, and also that wish to create a better life for herself. So if a relatively small intervention, like understanding the concept of savings, can release so much potential, imagine what real opportunities can do. And we need more young women and men to have opportunities. 1 year ago, here in New York, I was proud to launch Amplified Change, a foundation or a fund to support civil society advocacy for sexual and reproductive health and rights. And the demand has been overwhelming. 8,000 civil society and grassroots organisations have contacted Amplified Change, and the fund has received 1,500 applications for support. So it's an enormous pleasure for me to be able to announce that this weekend, 1 year on, and to coincide with this weekend's special events here in New York, Amplified Change has opened its opportunity grant window. So this is a grant that can provide support for initiatives of young people. Amplified Change wants to make at least 100 opportunity grants in the next 12 months. So take advantage of this and apply. So on that note, I'd just like to re-emphasize that the achievement of the 17 new global goals not only requires the involvement and participation of young people, it requires that young people take the lead. The 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development is about our future. So let us make this ambitious agenda the one that can transform our world. Thank you.